Hi, my name is Gordon Lee, and today we're going to be talking about the wrench project. So, in today's wrench project, we're going to be talking about how drawing on AutoCAD was a lot different than drawing on the actual paper. So, when I was drawing, when I was beginning to draw this, at first I was wondering where should I start from, and then the obvious point was to start from the bottom right and go towards the top. So as you can see that this is an octagon with one side that's opening. So at first I didn't know like should that octagon be straight like with the floor with the bottom being straight line or at the angle. But then when I looked at the example, the octagon was at a curve because in order for everything to fit on the paper, like for example if the octagon was horizontal and vertical 90 degrees, the shape will go towards the left only instead of northwest. So it might not fit on the paper level to do it that way. So when I was first drawing the octagon, I didn't know whether I should draw the octagon using this tool right here, the polygon tool, or draw each separate lines at once. So at first I drew the polygon with the octagon with the polygon um, tool, which got me into a full octagon. But then we had to remove one side. So then I changed my process and I made it into each eight separate equal lines with the same angle each line. So I knew how much was each line based on the example. It was point 40, and each side had to be the same amount of length. So when you drawing on AutoCAD versus when you're drawing on actual paper you could have some human error. Like for example, you're not gonna always get exactly point 40. Let's say your pencil lead could be thicker than another person's pencil lead, so you both of you guys won't have exactly point 40. And also when you measure point 40, is the human eye won't exactly measure point 40. So what I thought is that when you're drawing on paper, it's based on what you see and what you think the scale is. It's like you're drawing a line, you don't know exactly where it is point 40. You could be drawing point 40, point 4001. You could be drawing point 401. But on AutoCAD, you could be precise and draw and make the length point 4. Some of the advantage that I think AutoCAD had over drawing in person is that the lines are precise and you could figure out each angle without using a protractor drawing on with hand. So for example, um, right here, these two angles, you could figure it out by using the angular dimension, and then this angular dimension figure out what's the angle between two lines. Another thing is that in order to find the length of this line, I use this dimensioning tool to draw and see and measure how long the each line is. One of the disadvantages that I think AutoCAD has that drawing doesn't have is that um, you're more free to draw with hand. That you could feel more comfortable drawing with hands because you actually see it in person compared to a computer, which could have electronic issues. So when I was drawing a floor plan, it um, helped me prepare for this AutoCAD assignment because when I was drawing on the floor plan using the architect ruler and engineering ruler, I learned how to scale and, and how to measure each side with a certain side of the scale, and that helped me a lot because most of these sides are using the same length, so that helps because the scale is 1 to 1. Another which the drawing method I prefer is using AutoCAD because you have all the tools that you need it. For example, drawing a circle. When drawing a circle on in person, you're not gonna, you're not gonna always have a perfect circle because you may have some pencil error. Like your pencil lead might be, it might move a millimeter. You don't know that. So when drawing on AutoCAD, I think it feels more like perfect. Not essentially perfect, but like it's close to perfect. Some of the challenges that I had when drawing this project was to finding some of the unknown lengths. For example, these two lengths right here, th- they're not given in the assignment. So for me, in order to find it, I had to measure, I had to print out the example on a regular piece of paper with the scale 1 to 1 with the right scale, and I used the architect ruler to measure and, and compare the ratio from this line to this line. And after I found that length, I had to find an angle for this. One of the tips I learned when drawing, one of the tips I learned after drawing this small circle and this big circle was that this circle is scaled from 2.98 smaller than this scale. So when I finished drawing this part, the smaller circle, the stuff inside, I copied and pasted the stuff inside, and I basically scaled it to 2.98 bigger, which got into this size. Another tip I learned is that you could also use the Control Z, which will undo. Let's say you made an error right here, and you don't want it there no more. You can undo to a certain point where you want it to be. So by inputting control using Control Z, you could go backwards to a certain point of your project where that mistake never occurred, and then start from the beginning. Another tip I had is that measuring out each length. You could use a dimension tool to measure. Also, when I was first starting this project, I had some trouble finding the limits because I didn't know was it the paper supposed to be infinity or to a certain amount of paper. But I realized that this assignment has to be printed and graded to a certain scale. So in order to do that, you have to set the scale less than the computer paper in order to print all of it. I also realized that this the 8 by 10, 8.5 by 10, um, you can overlap it by a little, crossing the red, which will still fit on the letter paper, the printing paper. So overall, this assignment took me about 8 hours because I felt like these tiny bits Like these tiny little angles and lengths. If you don't get it to the precise length, it will have an after effect later on in your project. For example, I didn't measure out this angle correctly at the beginning, which caused this length and this length to be smaller than the actual length to 0.20. I had the length to be around 0.15, which isn't the correct length. So I had to fix the angle. I had to measure out the angle again and fix it. So overall, I feel like the drawing floor plan helped me a lot because it gave me like a kickstart on how to draw using using a scale and measuring out certain lines to precise measurements. Thank you.